Joe Barker.
Hey, there's a man. Welcome to Black Man Lab. Good evening. How's everybody doing this evening?
We got some.
It's good.
We got some ballers on.
Man, you got a crowd tonight, my man.
Yeah, man. This is great. This is great. So we are live, man. I just want to welcome everybody. I'm Maoli Davis, one of the co-founders of Black Man Lab and co-chair, chairman of the Black Man Lab Foundation, man. And I just want to welcome everybody on and just give some context of why we do what we do. I'm just finishing up some work, so I'm gonna drop off. But I wanted to just say the reason we do what we do is because we have young brothers that need to hear different voices from African-American men who are able to give perspectives. And so today we have a great group. We have a former NFL U of I ball player, my man who played with my boy Bopper, my boy Mel Agee, may he rest in peace, from 100 and I was on 101st in Luella. He was on 102nd. So we used to hoop at Luella Park together. But Mo Gardner, man, Mo is I remember going down to Champaign, watching him ball, and doing it big in the league. And so we appreciate Mo coming on. We got E. Courtney Scott, a FAMU graduate who's just really strong in this NBA world right now, helping shape and guide some of these young brothers in terms of career choices as they do the work that they do and help them plan a way forward after they finish playing in the NBA. And then we got Brother Sweet, man. Had a chance to meet him yesterday. He came out. I know he's working hard with Next Level Boys Academy and our brother Gary Davis. But Brother Sweet is here, who is in the league and supportive of the work, man. And we appreciate him. So we're just grateful. Looking forward to Brother Joe Barker, Jarrett, and Fred Parham, man, carrying the conversation and just, again, continue to enrich our young brothers. So I just give thanks for Black Man Lab. We lifting up Marty Monaghan, his pops. We just lifted him up, showing him love. We're in prayer for him, having a little health situation right now, but just know that prayers, no matter what our tradition is, they have power and they help manifest wellness. And so that's what we on. So with that, brothers, I want to turn it back over to you, Brother Barker, Brother Grant, for y'all to carry it forward, man. And again, thank y'all. Love you, brothers. And I'm looking forward to watching the replay of this one and sharing it out. Thanks, Brother Parham. Love you, brothers.
Appreciate you, Brother Davis. Appreciate you. And I know Brother Davis has to get out, but want to give you just a little bit of the background of Black Man Lab as well. Maoli Davis, Attorney Davis, is one of the founders of it, along with 3 or 4 others, Brother Grant and so forth. And what they did, man, is it's just a safe and sacred space where we can have, the older brothers, the younger brothers, all of us come in this space together, mentor one another, be able to talk and just have conversation with one another that, is non-judgmental and just open space, man. And Maoli was doing this in the basement of the Sankofa Church with Brother Derek Rice, and had, Fred's up some folk down there, 2 or 3 guys, just doing it all for the right reasons, never necessarily expecting, a larger platform, but always wanting to serve the community. And through God's grace and wisdom, we've been able to expand the platform to a much larger format. We at our greatest times, we were at the Y and other spaces where we would have 200 to 250 young brothers in there and older brothers and just taking care of one another, caring for one another. And we tried to translate that as best we could to a podcast type version, to a live type version that we do. So we are live on Facebook. And so brothers that are serving on the panel, as we get to the end, we may have some questions that we might want to, chat with you about, so we can answer some of our friends on Facebook as well. To get us started, however, what we are going to do is we're going to center ourselves and put us in a space where we can receive that. But even before we do that, we bring our ancestors into the room. And I would ask Brother Jarrett Grant to go ahead and please welcome our ancestors into this space.
Hey, Joe, start with oh, okay. I was having an issue with this phone, kept ringing. I'm sorry. Greetings, everyone. So we always like to call on our ancestors. We like to call on those who came before us just to recognize them in our hearts and mind, that we're here because they were here. And so we recognize those ancient African great states that were formed, that brought in our traditions and some of the greatest civilizations on earth. We say Ashe. We also thankful for those who were able to survive that Middle Passage and survive through slavery. We thank them when we say Ashe, Ashe. And we also want to thank those individuals, those greats, Mama Moses, W.B. Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, Malcolm X, all of these great legends, these people who lived and sacrificed their lives for us. We want to thank them when we say Ashe, Ashe. And lastly, the 10,000 ancestors who made you. When we look at it, your bloodline is significant and important as well. So we want to thank them for bringing all that you've become and have done, that you stand on the shoulders of your own bloodline. We want to plant them in our hearts and minds as well. And so we want to thank them, and we want to say Ashe 3 times for all of our ancestors on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe-o. Thank you, brothers.
Appreciate that, Brother Grant. And now that, and especially as we talk about pioneers and the work that we're doing in the sports community on and off the field, I know you brothers have people that have paved the road for you all, and you're doing so for others. So it's a great lead in to bring the ancestors into the room. Brother Parham, I would love it if you could help get us centered, though.
Give thanks, Joe, and to our distinguished panelists, thank you all for spending some time with us and our listening and viewing audience tonight. But Joe, man, let me just share with the audience real quick, kind of clear up a misnomer, because we come, in this posture where we're asking brothers to get centered and to get refocused, but at the same time, shake off, the troubles and trials of today's business. Somebody posted me and said, well, bro, Parham, man, you do that with the breathing and, all of that, but can't I just as easily take a glass of wine or a drink? And let me say this, brothers, if you do, you're welcome to it, but you still, in taking that drink to relax and get centered or whatnot, you're still gonna bring the problems forward with you, into the inebriated or space where you're drinking to relax. So no, I wouldn't recommend taking that drink first or taking that drink to try to relax and decompress. What I would say is you do that by simply, when you get out of your car or you transition from school or work, before you walk in the house, take a moment, man, to go through this exercise, this ritual of centeredness, and to step into your sacred home or your sacred place of dwelling. So if everybody would and could sit in a posture that is erect, and on 3, we're going to take a deep breath, 1 that will cause you to inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale slowly, 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, and 4. And from this posture, this place of relaxation, and your mind hopefully is clear and a little bit more lucid and ready for this important conversation about life beyond sports. Last thing I'll say, Joe, before I kick it back, is that I was charged by my elders many moons ago to always know what's going on with Black people here and there and around the world. And so as we send prayers to Marty Monaghan, one of our good brothers, let's send prayers powerful enough to go across the Atlantic Ocean to our sister Shasha Johnson, Black Lives Matter London, who was shot yesterday. And it made international news. And so let us be mindful of our sister who is engaged in the struggle across the great ocean. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And that's you know, it's so much going on around the world, man. It's critical that we lift those folks up that you know need our love, need our thoughts, man. So appreciate that. And Marty, we know you're in this space with us, man. Appreciate it. So what I want to do now is I want to just kind of let our guests introduce themselves a little bit and talk to us about you know your background, what you might be doing right now before we get too much into the questions. Mo, let's start with you, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for having me this evening. I really appreciate it and have the highest respect for what you guys do. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, originally. Grew up there and was fortunate enough to get a football scholarship to the University of Illinois and played 5 years there. I was a redshirt freshman and was there for 5 years. My Uli spoke about our boy Mel Agee, who was a big part of my life, you know, at that point and in that school. And then had a really was on some really good teams. We ended up going to bowl games. I was named to a couple All-American teams, and fortunately was fortunate enough when I was finished there was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, which brought me to the city. Now, this is back in the old days. People may not even remember the teams I played on, but I was drafted by the Jerry Glanville Atlanta Falcons and played for Jerry Glanville and June Jones and had a 6-year career in the NFL. And then once I was done, I started transitioning into something that I always had an interest in terms of books and history and that aspect of my life, and ended up at Clark Atlanta and got a master's degree in library science and research. Through navigating that space, eventually ended up with the Fulton County Library System with the Auburn Avenue Research Library, which specifically is for people of African descent, the history, the archives, and all of that. And so that's where I'm currently at now. I'm a library principal at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And so those who know, I know a lot of brothers know about it, but it's specifically for our community. We work a lot with community groups in terms of providing programming, lectures, things of that nature. But we also have and archives and resources that are open to the public that you might not necessarily have access to if it was on like a university campus or something like that. So we are very much geared to making sure that the truth of our history and is celebrated, but also accessible to people that need it. So that's currently where I'm at now. So that's a brief snippet, you know, kind of where I came from.
I appreciate that. That's major. And we're definitely going to unpack that a little bit more because there's so much rich history on Auburn Avenue alone.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is maintained within that library. And a lot of our young brothers and sisters may not be too aware of that. So we're going to come back to that in a little bit, let you unpack that. So appreciate that. That's awesome work that you're doing. Brother Scott, how about yourself, good brother?
Yeah. Thank you all so much. As Mauli mentioned, Courtney Scott, graduate of Florida A&M University. I have part of 2 organizations. So the first one I started, Mauli had mentioned, was Content Incubator, and we specifically work with the parents of lottery picks of NBA players. And for those of you that don't know, a lottery pick is anyone who's going to get drafted 1 through 14. And we teach those parents about the business of sports, from soup to nuts, anything that you possibly can think about, from marketing, how shoe deals work, contracts, you know, how to select agents, how to vet agents, how to select financial advisors, how to vet them, and the whole 9 yards. So we teach parents about the business of sports and work closely prior to them even going to the NBA. They're doing that one and done year that they're in college and while they're in the NBA. So we work with those families all through. And the other organization that we just recently started, Luke Fetlam and I, we started the College Basketball Parents Association, known as the CBPA. And that's just a collective group of families whose sons and daughters play Division 1, 2, 3 in JUCO basketball. And we're doing the same thing, educating the families. And we received a lot of great press, you know, from ESPN, and, you know, we pretty much talked to all the stakeholders. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So that second organization, it's about educating parents as well.
Yes, the CB. So with the CBPA. So with content, that's why I make money, right? But working with the lottery picks, that's the sweet spot. But the CBPA, there's so many young men and women who are not going to go to the NBA or the WNBA. And so they have to understand there are careers outside of just playing football or basketball or in our case, just basketball. And so what we do is we educate them about so many different things. Like right now, the hot button topic is NIL, name, image, and likeness. Educating the families about NIL, how that works when the legislation kicks in. COVID was another hot topic that we discussed as well. So we educate families about, anything dealing with their sons or daughter with respect to men's and women's college basketball. In addition to when they come to us with questions about life after basketball, what's next, we try our best to make sure that those families have all the necessary information to move forward once those 4 or 5 years are over.
Sure. Awesome. Appreciate that, good brother. Let's go to my young bro here, brother Sweet, man. You don't have life after the league yet because you're in the league, but introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, brother.
What's going on, everybody? William Sweet here. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. Played 3 years in the NFL. From UNC, graduated from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And my rookie year, I launched an investment firm focusing on stocks, real estate, and cryptocurrency. And I started investing at the age of 17 because I understood that was the best way for me to have ownership in big brand companies where I could grow with these companies. And essentially my mission is to help close the racial gap here in America. And I want to leave a legacy for my family to build generational wealth.
Wow, man. And you knew that at 17, 18 years old, good brother?
Well, it's all about learning every single day. And I just think having a thirst and passion for knowledge allowed me to, just continue to keep learning. And that's the biggest thing. Never stop learning and do what you love.
I respect that, Sweet, man. It's great great having you on here, giving that perspective. Brother Scott will tell you, when I was 18, I was a FAMU, and I was not thinking about that kind of future. Just to be clear. I was a FAMU, and there's a whole nother future I was thinking about. We won't get into that. That's a whole nother topic. Scott, you with me on that, though?
I'm with you all the way.
Well, look, man, you brothers have really done an amazing job of investigating, what is life after off the court, off the field, and you've kind of unpacked a little bit why you did it that way. So one of the things Marty always does, he taught me this, and I love the way he did it because some of the listeners that we have, they're on a very, learning level where they may not know some of the basic things. So one of the questions I always lead with is I like to dispel the myth. And in this case, I want to dispel the myth with respect to once you're off the professional arena, it's over. Like you basically are going to be, bagging groceries at Publix or what have you. Not saying that's a bad thing. Don't mean to say that, but just that you don't have a plan for what's next. So how would you dispel the myth that after sports, you athletes, you just kind of don't know what to do? How would you dispel that, Brother Scott?
Well, one of the first things I had this come up with the parent that, once she found out that I graduated from Florida A&M, she told her son, and he was, kind of shocked that I was, especially working with lottery picks and the best players that are about to be drafted. I always say, if you look at who runs the teams, who administrates the league, those guys' careers, and men and women, those careers run 20, 30 years, right? If you look at how long the people that play the game, those careers, lucky maybe 5 years, depending, that's pushing it. And another fact that I always say is that, this is just a fact. The guys who play the sport make the most money, but the people who determine whether you're going to play on the team or not make less than you. Right. So as far as the front office personnel, the scouts and all those guys, somebody's making $20, $30 million. The scouts don't make that much money, but the people, the guys who determine, whether you're going to play make less, and they can do that year after year after year. I always encourage, and I was happy Mauli asked me to come on, as I always encourage these guys, and the young ladies to look at the jobs surrounding sports. All right. So in working with lottery picks, you know, if the NBA has 450 players, and this is just real math, if the NBA has 450 players, right, those first 8 or 9 spots are already taken. So you're not taking LeBron's spot, you're not taking KD's spot, you're not taking Steph Curry's spot. So those 5 guys that are on the court, those 5 slots are guaranteed. Plus, if you go to 4 or 5 deep in the league, I mean, in the bench, that's 10 spots, right? Maybe 8, 9, 10. So if you multiply 8, 9 by 30 teams, that's roughly 240 spots that are already just guaranteed. That are not, those are already just guaranteed, right? Then you have, I'll name some, the Wendell Carters, the Cam Reddishes, the Jalen Smith, the RJ Hamptons, all these guys, those guys are going to the first round, and they're definitely going to get they're going to the first round. Their contracts are guaranteed. And so I always just advise the guys, just look at what I do. I've never played basketball, high school, rec league, college. You know, I never did, but here I am. I won't say I'm in the driver's seat, but helping guide along those families. There's just so many jobs that these young men and women can do outside of throwing the ball or dribbling the ball.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. That's great information. That's just what we need our listeners to be hearing, man. Mo, what about you, man? Well, how would you dispel the myth that, you know, well, after football is over, I don't know what I'm gonna do next? How do you dispel that myth?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, one, it doesn't encompass you completely. That you have interests outside of that specific thing that you may be very, very good at. And it may bring you a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure, but it doesn't encompass you totally. And so the brother that's working with the Scots, working with the families and creating that kind of network and that kind of protection around these brothers, I think it's allowing these brothers to not exist in that bubble that actually just makes it so that's all I know and that's all I am. That's the first thing, because most of your life, regardless, even if you take the best careers, is only such a small fraction of your entire life. So the total amount that you play is just a fraction of, you know, who you are in the extension of your life. And so those interests that you have, I always had interest in learning and books and history. And those were even there before football. So I had a mother who would drop me off the library and I'd be there all day and she'd come back and pick me up. And then I go to football practice, you know, the next day. And so those interests that you have, those are part of your existence and they're just as important as anything else. And sometimes that limelight actually focuses on that one part of your life and doesn't allow you to explore all these other avenues that you have interest in.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you mentioning your previous passions and the things you did, because a lot of times it creates a really good space now that you're in a league and you've done some things, you have the resources, you now can go expand that for other people. So one of the things I want to hear from you, brother Mo, is exactly what you're doing at Auburn Research Library, because I know how powerful that library is. Mally has had some press conferences there just to try and give them some exposure. But man, tell us a little bit more about the library.
Yeah, so if you take for an example, we're looking at the Tulsa actual massacre. The Tulsa massacre anniversary is right now. It was critical that the information that allowed us to even know that story was preserved and archived. People's oral histories were collected, because that literally could have disappeared. There's Tulsa massacres that happened that we have no idea that it even occurred, because the history was whitewashed and intentionally paved over. And so if you just look at that as an example, that's the work that we do. We are there to ensure that we get an understanding of our place in history, because of not just the oral traditions of people passing it down from family to family, but we have these records as these organizations supported the cause. And this is how they maneuver to get around certain laws and change laws and that kind of thing. And so when we have our archives, it's an active live effort to make sure that our history is in place. And we enhance that by doing programs with professors who come in and talk about their scholarship, or doing programs that are community centered. So everybody in the community can get access to those things that may live well on the campuses of FAMU or Morehouse, but brothers who aren't associated with those organizations may not feel comfortable being in those spaces. But us as a public institution, you can come off the street and hear a lecture from a professor that you may have to pay money for it at the Carter Center or at the Center for Human Rights. It's a free public access to that kind of information. So those are the things that we engage on a daily basis to ensure that if you want to sit down and read a certain text that you heard about that you got public access, and it didn't matter whether you had money to buy the book or get it off Amazon, it's accessible to you just like it's accessible to anybody else. And so that's where we kind of function in that sweet spot of allowing the public to get access to the information. I think it ties in well to what the other brothers do, because it's not a financial resource, but it is a knowledge, cultural resource that has just as much relevance to your life as the investing that you do in Google stock or anything like that. This cultural information and this cultural access is very important.
No, I agree, man. Go ahead, Scott.
And I was going to say, I would also, one of the things I always encourage families to do is, everybody wants to build with LeBron, KD and those guys, but I also encourage families to dial it back a little bit deeper and look what Junior Bridgman is doing, as well as Vinnie Johnson. For those of you guys don't know, before, you look at what Junior Bridgman is doing with the franchises, and I think fast food, and I think he just got a partnership with a bottler, Coca-Cola or something like that. But he's making money. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars, hands over fist. Then if you look at what Vinnie Johnson is doing up in Detroit, where he
auto parts,
correct. What he's doing with the auto parts. I mean, these guys are making money. They're making more money than the guys that are playing right now in the league. I mean, they are literally making tons of money. So when you say, hey, Scott, football is over, basketball is over, I always encourage the guys to, while you're in the league, let's explore things, because the world is definitely moving at a faster pace, and there's so many things that you can do outside of football or basketball, but you have to leverage what you have while you're in the league, because there's only a handful of people that folks are going to pick the phone up, your LeBrons, your KDs, your Magic Johnsons and all those folks. People will pick up Shaq. Folks will pick the telephone up for those guys once they start playing. But if you all the way at the end of the bench, right, it's going to be a challenge.
Brother Scott, you say something very significant. One of the things, of course, on that list you just talked about with Vinnie and Junior Bridgman out of Milwaukee. I'm from Wisconsin.
Okay.
And so they're not far behind. Jordan, of course, is number one in that category as it pertains to basketball. Magic Johnson. And of course, right now with LeBron. And then you get Vinnie and Junior Bridgman and Vinnie.
I mean, they're making a ton of money.
They're making hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Well, Vinnie's is like a straight up $1 billion industry.
Man, he's making a ton of money
working in. But some of these passionate things that we've done. I had hoop dreams. Myself. I remember the last time, I'm from Wisconsin. I played. I grew up with Nicky Van Exel.
Okay.
And then the last time I played him, and I was like, what happened? We were about 22, 23, and he was a step above, and I was like, okay, we've been playing since 5th or 6th grade. I something happened there, where I was like, okay. So I could have gone overseas and played, but I decided not to over some, I just didn't really understand the overseas piece. And I just didn't realize them asking me to play in England. I just didn't know they played basketball in England. As a 22-year-old, that just didn't make any sense to me. So, but I didn't have that mentorship. So but I was mentored also in scholarship. And, here I'm hearing Brother Gardner's story as well, but being in the library for hours on end, so he had another passion, hearing Brother Sweet as well. He had another passion as well as it pertained to investment. And as you were just talking about, other brothers get into other things that they could be passionate about. What would you tell our youth, our young people? That's one of the part of Black Man Lab. We talk to the younger people, some that are in the middle school and high school, and some in their younger 20s. They're looking for other outlets. And one of the major outlets that they're looking for is, how do I make money?
Right.
And so, while at the same time we're saying, but please do something that you're passionate about. You know, I had my hoop dreams. I still got to play basketball, not for money, but I went into the field of scholarship and education, which I was and still am very passionate about as a professor right now. What would you say to these young people about whether there are other either lucrative careers or other facets of sports that they just wouldn't have even guessed that they could be a part of?
Let's start with you, Brother Sweet. It's been a minute since I kicked it over to you. What are your thoughts on that, Sweet?
That's a great question. Dream big. Dream big. I think if you follow your heart and your passion, there's so many different ways that you can monetize, like you were saying, things that you do for pure enjoyment. And what I mean by dreaming big is, you know, instead of looking at whatever that profession is or passion is that may not be as lucrative as you want it to be, when I say dream big, think outside the box. How can I take this passion of mine to the ultimate extreme level to channel different outlets where I can, you know, generate cash flow from whatever my passion is, whether that's starting a business, you know, for whatever it may be. Maybe it's teaching other people how to do it. Maybe it's being extremely skilled and knowledgeable where people are paying you to speak at events. Maybe it's, you know, you're so knowledgeable and passionate about your passion that, you know, you hold seminars. It's just whatever it is, whatever your passion is, dream big, and no one can take your dream away from you. And that's kind of what I want my message to be to everyone on the call today is literally want to accomplish in life. Like, you can do it.
Gotcha.
Dream big.
Gotcha. Mo, let's kick it over to you, man. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think one aspect of it too is that I think it's important. We all have to make livings. We all want a certain income, but there is also an inherent beauty in being able to do something that you love and being able to combine that to the fact that maybe you can make a living out of that. And maybe it never puts you into, you know, a mansion or anything like that, but understand that inherent value of being able to do something that you are passionate about. And sometimes there's lots of unhappy people that make lots of money, you know, and so all the money ain't good. It's like you really do have to have that inherent kind of understanding of who you are, where your passions lie, because you don't want to get caught into a chase that is driving you away from what you truly maybe want to do and what your true passions are, because it's a dollar figure that you're chasing after. So there's an element of that I think once you're in a situation where you're able to benefit by being a professional athlete, there's skill sets that are intangibles that you lift out of that, you know, in terms of your work ethic, in terms of what you contribute to a team environment that are easily transportable with you. You take those things with you. You're going to leave your knees, you're going to leave your broke shoulders, you're going to leave all that. But those inherent things that made you a good athlete are going to enhance what you do, you know, on that next step of life. But it is important for really to find that true passion and have it centered to hopefully I can make a living and do well at this, but not let that ground you to where you start to distract yourself from, you know, what you truly believe in your core is what you meant to do.
And man, as we kick it over to Scott, I just want to say to Sweet and Mo, man, thank you for those answers, because that's what our youth need to hear. You know, Mo, you were very honest, like, hey, it may not put you in a mansion, but at the end of the day, you know, you're following something that you love, you're passionate about, and furthering the cause of the community and what we're supposed to be doing down here anyway. So I appreciate both of you all's perspective on that. And Scott, we're going to close out the question.
Go ahead, Joe. I was just going to add a point before Scott took off.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
To echo Mr. Gardner, Brother Gardner, if you are living in your purpose, it extends the health in your life. Money sometimes can be, you know, if not checked and if not looked upon as a tool, you know, all of these worldly things, and I hate to put it in that kind of old-timey language, but all of these things that we are attracted to and pull towards and push towards in the world are not always promoting life and health. So for the young people listening on the call, Brother Gardner, I agree 100%. lock in with trying to discover your purpose for being on the planet. There is your happiness and there is your health. So I just wanted to put that in there, Joe, for the young ears
Great
that
point.
are tuned in.
What about you, Brother Scott?
Yeah, I would always, try to expose the young guys, young people that want to get in sports. Obviously, everybody, they know what an agent is. Hey, I want to be an agent. I want to represent players. But it's a couple of things, couple of pathways to do a lot of things, right? So I don't know if the young people are familiar with, I know we're familiar with David Stern, the former commissioner of the NBA. He just didn't come directly to the NBA. He used to work with the law firm Proxcow Rose, very prominent law firm up in New York. So you can practice or learn, how can I best sharpen your knife, so to speak, in other fields before you get to sports, right? You may work for Procter and Gamble or Coca-Cola or do or another organization before you come to the NBA. And two of the hottest, I always like to meet these young people where they are. So two of the hottest things that are run trending fields in sports right now, it's content creation, which these young people like to shoot videos and do these type of things. And there's also data and analytics, right? So if you can tell me Steph Curry can shoot 40% or quarterback is completing 70 to 80% of his passes, that's data and analytics, right? And since they love money so much, hey, you can be an accountant, balance books. You got to know how, and so, it's so many things that the young people can do, getting they want to get into sports, and it's not so much of a clear path, but you can gain experience in other fields, whether that's, again, data and analytics, IT, content creation, and practice in another field, and bring that over to sports. Is really no, you can also create new ways. Teams now are accepting cryptocurrency as a form of payment for tickets and admission. So, and to piggyback on what William said, hey, I'm into cryptocurrency. So, teams are accepting cryptocurrency, and it's so many different ways. And you can also create your scouting service. Whether you scout football players or basketball players or tennis players, or you may create some type of wearable. Whoop. I don't know if you guys have heard of Whoop, WHOOP. That's a new wearable that measures your heart rate. And it does so many things. And these are all things different in technology that the guys can use now with the emergence of esports. That's a new form of gaming, or it's not a new form of gaming, but it's at the forefront. There's just so many ways that the young guys can, and young people can stay around sports, and don't have to be directly play football or basketball or tennis or whatever the case.
So brothers, tell us what's up, man. We hearing, and I'm sure every young person and mom who got, a kid in the house who somebody told can run, jump, or hit a ball. The governor's law is taking effect this summer with respect to the college athletes making money. Tell us, man, from your mouths to our ears, what's up? What's the pros and cons of that, man? And what's the best you can give to our up and coming athletes, both male and female?
Yeah, so I'll speak on that. So we've had, with the CBPA, we've had several conversations with the stakeholders at the NCAA about name, image, and likeness. So the name, image, and likeness is scheduled, and it's about right now, I think about 14 to 15 states, if I'm not mistaken, to take effect on November 1st. The governor for Georgia just signed legislation, I think last week or a week before. The thing with NIL that parents, and this goes for all the parents of all athletes. These athletes going to be 1099. You're going to get a 1099. You're going to be, and when you get paid, none of these companies or organizations are going to take taxes out, right?
You're responsible for your own taxes, folks.
Yeah, these young folks, the guys will be responsible for their own taxes. And they will need to, learn how to budget it, so if you're in California, right, and you get a $5,000 deal, or I'm just making up a number, you might as well cut that in half and say it's $2,500. When it comes to fake state and federal taxes. And you need, there's going to need to, I would recommend that they have a system in place on how to do it. Now, with the CBPA, and I'll be sure to share this with you guys. We're doing a name, image, and likeness education hour with the CBPA, where we're going to be talking about
Oh, we love it.
name, image, and likeness. And Luke, the other co-executive director, he's probably one of the top 1, 2, or 3 people in the country when it comes to NIL. So he's going to be talking about legislation, how to handle certain things. So, but for the parents who do have young men and women that are in college athletics, it's definitely going to be a lot, because the colleges the NCAA doesn't even know. So you definitely can't expect the parents to really know.
So let me ask Bro Sweet, and then I'm gonna close my mouth, Bro Grant, Bro Barker. So does it sound like there's a 3-part piece to this? It's the student, it's the business opportunity, and then the college is the middleman. Did I put that right? Or is the college left out of that, and it's a direct conversation between the college athlete and the business opportunity? So how does the college play in that triangle in terms of who gets what?
To my understanding, I haven't looked, that deep into it, but to my understanding, players are allowed to use their name and likeness to promote themselves in order to be compensated. For example, if you're Trevor Lawrence and you're the number 1 pick, and people know you're going to be the number 1 pick, you can advertise or host football camps, and be compensated for you being Trevor Lawrence. And people want to, what quarterback doesn't want to learn from the number 1 draft pick? So I think that's how the structure of it is. I could be wrong, but to my understanding, is your name and your likeness can be used to monetize different events.
Thank you, Bro Sweet, for giving us some clarity on that. And so it's a big deal, Brother Courtney, and I'm looking forward to having the Black Man Lab advertise this important event, particularly for our kids living in the urban, communities where sometimes that sport seems like it's the only way out or up.
So one of the things I also wanted to touch on, man, and brother Scott, you definitely touched on it, and I want to go over to Brother Gardner, and everybody's kind of answered this, but Sweet and I were in a mentoring session a couple of weeks ago, and Gary Davis talked about how there's so many opportunities out there, and some of these young brothers are like, no, I want to do that, I want to do that. But Brother Scott, you said something, content creation, and I remember Gary specifically talked about that. He said he will pay somebody. He'll pay somebody just to follow him around and take pictures and make videos of his activities. As the leader of this organization, he doesn't have time to do all that. He doesn't have time to do all the selfies. So can you imagine, football players, basketball players just saying, hey, I don't want to do my own stuff. I'll pay you to sit up in the stands, buy you a nice camera, and you're doing all this. Like, I'm so glad you touched on that, because that is what so many of our teams are doing, that recognize the value in that. But with that, what are some of the other areas that we may be underselling ourselves, and not necessarily recognizing the value of where we're headed from a technological standpoint? What are some of y'all's thoughts as our youth are listening, what they might be able to tap into moving forward? Mo, let's start with you this round.
Yeah, one of the things, I think one of the things I definitely want to emphasize is that we ground a little bit of the conversation into the history of the African-American experience and sports. So names like Curt Flood, I mean, everybody knows Jackie Robinson, but a name like Curt Flood, he was the first brother that said, I am not going to play in a different city. He created free agency. And if you look like the court records, and that was completely disrespected by the legal system and isn't a name that we all know. But I would love to see that kind of integration into this conversation about these brothers that are going out and making that money and understanding a whole different world that's different, far different than what I experienced as an athlete, but have this still grounded in that Curt Flood experience and understand Jackie Robinson beyond just the scope of him as a baseball player, but the fact that he was excluded out. I mean, what was excluded out was a whole industry of Black baseball that they totally killed when they created integration and brought Jackie Robinson into the league. So there's a larger scope of framework for us to create that content around, you know. And so you see those sisters in the WNBA, they really seem to have a larger scope about what this platform was for in terms of being active politically and being engaged in what was happening in our communities, you know, beyond just the financial aspect of it, which is critically important. But I would love to see that history of what we've done as a people. Some of these, the SEC before 1968, you go back to the history, they weren't playing Black players. And the HBCUs had Walter Payton, these top players that were there, and understand that context, you know. And so I'm not saying that that transforms everything, but it gives you this grounded sense of yourself when you start to experience all this stuff. And I think it definitely would impact the content that you create, because you understand you're part of a longer legacy of athletes and experiencing that. And then I think you can go on and then expand the conversation to who's the GM of the Atlanta Falcons right now? Terry Fontenot, a brother from New Orleans. And so people understand this larger scope that isn't just about what's happening on the field, but it's also about this broader understanding of where it's positioned and where it's always been positioned for Black people.
Man, and you know what? I would leave it up to the brother that works in the Auburn Research Library to drop that nugget, man. That was powerful, Mo. That was powerful, man. I appreciate that. You said a word then, bro. Said a word. Well, I mean, education is always critical in anything that we do, you know, and I appreciate the path that you've chosen to take. Because, you know, when you look at Black Wall Street, when you look at Auburn Avenue and how successful the African-American community was, you know, we ain't need for Herman Russell, all them brothers, they handle all of that. And to where we are now and what integration did to all that, that is some very powerful points there, brother Mo, man. I appreciate you bringing that to light, man. Brother Scott, what about you, man? Anything you want to bring up with respect to that?
Yeah, I think that is so important, you know, to know, you know, the history and the about Curt Flood. But I will also, in bringing that up, you know, I would also, you know, challenge these young men and women to learn what's on the cutting edge. Like you're hearing NFTs, right? And so when you think about NFTs, when you dig deeper, that's the league has an agreement with a company called Doppler Labs. It's actually the NBA and the NBPA, and Doppler Lab. Doppler is based out of Canada, right? And so when you think about how all of this stuff works, I think that the sooner you know, we start asking questions and digging up under, you know, looking up under the hood, you know, we'll be able to mine that. But I think equally as important is when we go back to the content creation. So one of the things I began to tell some of the families long before and it's probably about 5 or 6 of them about going to be lottery picks going to this year's first round draft, is they've been filming their sons since they were little kids, right? So they've got football footage, basketball footage. And I told one of the things that I recommended to them, I said, hey guys, just hold on to all of that footage, because I just like you hear Michael Jackson songs used, you know, you will be able to, if your son generates enough hype, you know, you will be able to use some of that footage and monetize it. And one of the families I've been telling, I'll drop their name. One of the families I've been talking to this about the last 5.5, 6 years is Mr. Suggs and Miss Manley, which is Jalen Suggs' parents. We've been talking about this for years, probably when Jalen was in the 9th grade. We've been having these conversations, and now Jalen's a top 5 pick, and Mr. Suggs and I mean, they got reams and reams of data for Jalen. So, it's just really being able to monetize your assets. And that content creation is really where it is right now.
I appreciate that. That is very true. So Sweet, man, let's come over to you, man. We've kind of talked about the importance of knowing the history, you know, our history and some of the great things that we've done and how it's been, you know, kind of overlooked and just focus on some of the individuals instead of the overwhelming efforts of what we as a community have accomplished. But then you have the cutting edge things as well. And I want to bring you in on that, because as we looked at crypto and some of the other things, you know, I want to challenge you, and I'll challenge all the brotherhood to this. Is that just more of us, you know, kind of acquiescing to what, you know, they're doing over there and wanting to integrate? Or is it more of us coming in and saying, we're always kept out of this because, you know, historically we don't know and we didn't read and we didn't learn. So this is us coming at the front end of it. Like how would you justify, you know, challenging young brothers like this is what you're supposed to be doing and here's what it's going to do for your community?
I think as the gentleman prior mentioned about how important the history is, just understanding that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And what I mean by that is there's been so many tears and bloodshed and many years of frustration that still continues to this day, where people have made sacrifices for us, for all of us. And as you think about that and as you move forward, you have to understand that, you know, we have to be the change that we want to see. And forever thankful for those before me. And, you know, what keeps me going is I've been motivated by others, and I'm inspired to motivate those around me. And it's just about, you know, coming together and collaboration. I know we were talking about dreaming big and everything, but the collaboration aspect of it, of what we're doing right now, we're collaborating, we're connecting with one another, and we just have so many talents and abilities inside of our DNA, just naturally. And, you know, I just want, you know, these young men and young women on the call to just understand that greatness is inside of you. It's inside of all of us.
So let me ask you this, Sweet. Let me unpack that a little bit more, because I kind of know where Mo's passion came from and the path that he took, and Brother Scott as well. You know what, the path you took in terms of the crypto, man, and some of the other cutting edge things you did, where that inspiration come from? What, again, I'm not even joking what I was thinking at 17, 18. That's impressive. Where did that come from? What was your driving factor behind that?
So I graduated high school early.
Okay.
And my first year of college, we were there doing football all summer, all day, every day, which was cool. But I went to the school and said, hey, I want to work. I want to make some money. And they connected me with notable alumni in the area. And I did an internship with Jimmy John's. The owner, he owns the most Jimmy John's in the United States. And just learning about business, learning how to operate a business, learning about the logistics of running your own company, it inspired me. That level of exposure sparked me. And I believe I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I was the kid that was selling candy in high school, right? You know, I'm selling to the teachers and the principal and security guards. I'm making sure they're good so I can do what I do.
Right.
You know, I got Snickers, I got honey buns, Capri Sun. I got you. Don't worry, I got you. So I've always had, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit. But I believe when I was exposed to business, that's what brought it out of me, to be honest with you, Joe.
Sweet, that totally makes
So
sense.
in other words, Sweet, you initiated the conversation. It wasn't a structured process available to all of the athletes, regardless of their position. Is that what I heard you say? You initiated versus it being something that you guys were structured, a part of your structured program?
That's correct. I took the initiative to ask the administration at the school, how can I get an internship? I want to work.
Ooh,
you know, I had to drive. You know, and I went to the school and I said, hey, you know, please help me find an internship. I would like to work. You know, we're doing all, football is great. Classes are great. I want to make some money.
Come on,
Can you help me?
I'm hearing.
Can you help me? and you know, they connected me.
Love it, brother.
Something that I've heard in this call tonight, and we're getting ready to wind it down here, but it's interesting, man. Something that I've heard, you know, Sweet sought out that opportunity. He was like, I need money, I need a job. Here's what I'm gonna do. And then he connected that entrepreneurial spirit with, you know, the business side. What do y'all think is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, just my engineering mind, the way it works, but what I'm hearing in this conversation is it sounds like there's about to be an amazing opportunity for people to create different revenue, different streams of income and businesses as this NCAA starts paying their athletes. I mean, I don't know if my own is making sense of that, because there's about to be a bunch of folks that are figuring out how to make some money, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it.
Right. And I think that's a very good point. I think with NIL, just having the parents being educated about the process, because, you know, I think our biggest thing collectively as a group, as a people, we know how to generate the money, but for some reason or another, we cannot retain it and pass it down to the next group of people coming up behind us. But it's somebody else I want to also mention that you guys might know of. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rashawn Williams with Manhattan Venture Park, MVP. So Rashawn, you probably a couple of weeks ago, you got in Rashawn William, I got to connect you with Rashawn Williams. Rashawn's here in Atlanta. He invests in all of the latest companies. So a couple of weeks ago, you probably guys heard about Coinbase going and how Nas was involved with that. Rashawn is the one who bought Nas. Rashawn's from Chicago. Rashawn Williams, MVP, Manhattan Venture Partners. Rashawn's from Chicago, graduated from Morehouse, and Rashawn has access to all of the major deal flow. And what people don't, a lot of people, what I learned from Rashawn is, you know, he said, Courtney, there are only maybe 6 or 7 companies who have access to all the real deal flow. So you talk about your Coinbases, you talk about you name another company. You know, it's only 6 or 7 of those companies that have access to all of the real deal flow, and those companies are the ones that you continuously see win. Your Andreessen Horowitz, and Rashawn's in that loop, and he's doing exceptionally well. And he does a lot of investing in the emerging technology, the new technologies that are coming out. So again, this is just going back to the young people wanting to be involved in sports. It's so many different ways to be involved with it. But going back or circling back when it comes to this NIL, a lot of times, you know, the parents want to be the managers of being involved, and it's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you know, I think the caveat is just make sure you understand what you're doing. People give LeBron and say, hey, they see Rich Paul and Maverick and Randy and say, you know, LeBron just put his boys on. But what people don't know or understand is that, you know, those guys interned at Nike. You know, at Nike, or you know, Rich Paul worked at CAA study under Leon Rose. Then he got out. People never see you in the kitchen cooking; they just see the finished product. And so there's always a process. So I always advise parents: yes, you know, you want what LeBron and those guys have, but it's an education process. LeBron just didn't throw them out. Again, those guys had internships with Nike, worked with different markets, and then on top of that, they had excellent guidance. So I think it's a fair play, a great play for the families. They just have to be educated about the process and know the sports business. I've been doing this since 1996.
So that would bring me to, I'm sorry. That would bring me to, and that's a good segue to another question. One, Ron Butler is also from my hometown. And one of the things that he talked about was he was on the radio doing an interview and saying that he no longer, you know, will, you know, his family cannot work in his businesses and things. And so he may provide for them, but as far as some of the investments and things that he was working with and on, he just found it that was counterproductive to what he was trying to do, understanding whatever the capacity that his family could or could not do certain things, because they may not have had the educational or professional aptitude or experience in order to do certain things. What, from y'all's experience, good, bad, indifferent, or ugly, you know, your social networks, family, friends, how impactful have these people been towards the either success and or downfall? You know, what could we tell young people to be prepared for as it pertains to their friendships, their family ships, you know, their relationships or partnerships, their social networks? What could we tell them, you know, as it relates to all of this? And we could start with anybody can start. We haven't heard from Brother Gardner in a minute.
Yeah, Mo, let's start with you, man.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would say about that is a two-way street, right? I think there's an element of like sports that we always look at that top echelon of what exists. I played in the NFL, but I was far from a top echelon player. I was that guy that was on the bottom of the food chain, just because of my talent level. I mean, every step you go from high school to college, the talent level changes. And I had a skill level that made me be an exceptional college player. And when I made that transition to the NFL, I wasn't an exceptional NFL player. I was that 60%, 70% of guys that play in the NFL. And I think that's what we really got to articulate for young people as well. When you say names like LeBron or those big names, that is the upper 1% of the NBA or the NFL. And the bulk of it is guys who play a role, have a life that extends far beyond, you know, that threshold of what their professional experience is. And I think that's the one thing when the brother's talking about building that core family or whatnot, I think they also got to remember that as well. I think that people automatically assume if you make it as a professional athlete, you in that 1%. And that distortion leads to a lot of misperceptions about where that person's actually existing even within that framework. And I'm gonna do a plug for the library because I believe you can pick up a book and learn a lot of stuff. But I read a book by the brother Andre Iguodala called The Sixth Man. And he does a masterful job of talking about how he transitioned from being this sixth man, this amazing basketball player at Golden State, and what it looked like when he started talking about people in the tech world and how hard it was for him to get his foot out of just being this guy people wanted to hang around with and actually be in the tech world and be in that investment environment. So that's a plug for the library. Get it at the library, and that's one book that I feel navigates that really well.
Hey, Rudy Klein Thomas is this guy who helps him navigate all that stuff.
That's what's up. Yeah,
Rudy Klein.
Book, man.
Yeah, Rudy Klein Thomas and all that stuff he's doing with Bloomberg and that Rudy Klein Thomas. But to your point, you know, it's a way to navigate that. But yeah.
Jared, you're on mute, brother. You're on mute.
That segues to you, Brother Scott. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to Morris's point. It's just really knowing how to, you know, get people to take you serious. Because even if you look at LeBron, what is the fact is LeBron's not the only superstar that's ever big time superstar that's played in the NFL, Major League Baseball, soccer. He's not. However, and none of those guys have college degrees. You know, I think Mav may have gone to college, Western Michigan, Central Michigan. He may have gone and played for a semester, but none of those guys have college degrees. But they found out how to navigate this sports business world exceptionally well. And it's because, again, they just didn't jump out in the HOV lane because LeBron's a baller. Those guys, number one, inside, they had the skill set, aptitude to know how to do it, but they got the proper training. And I think that's probably what differentiates their crew from everybody else. You know, I mean, and if you don't have the skill set, aptitude, or have somebody walking you through things, just like you have somebody teaching you how to tie your shoes, you have someone teaching you how to, you know, comb your hair or put on your shirt or whatever the case may be, if you just get out there, it's going to be a train wreck. You don't drive without understanding what the red, yellow, and green light means. Because if you didn't, there'd be so many accidents.
Amen. No, I appreciate that, man. I tell you what, man, we're coming close to the end. I don't know, Jared, did you want to ask Sweet to answer that one?
Yes, sir. Please.
I think as it relates to having a sense of longevity, especially as it relates to sports, in the NFL, you're lucky to see 3 years, right? So just having a sense of longevity and trying to find creative ways to sustain the level of income and also impact that you have in the community, I think is critical to have the right team around you and being able to empower your circle. And I think that when you have the ability to influence those around you to elevate everyone's game, that's when that's what winning looks like to me. It's not necessarily, okay, you know, I'm winning, I'm doing all this kind of stuff, I'm this and that. But how many people have you taught? How many people have you impacted? How many people have you influenced to do things at or better at a better level than you are? It's about creating that sense of impact in the community of each one teach one. And I think that's important. And knowledge is power.
And it's funny that you say that, Sweet, because one of the things I commend each of you on, Sweet, starting with you, just your going into cryptocurrency, learning that, and willing to take others. Mo, man, just again, I'll just keep harping on the Auburn Research Library. That's huge. There's literally no better way to educate our community on our community in Atlanta. Like there's no better way than the work that you're doing. And Brother Scott, man, the fact that you're taking parents and you're helping teach them the game. Like if you want to be part of this, if you want to be successful in it, learn it, understand it. Here, I have some nuggets for you. And I think what all of y'all are doing is very much what we're all about, right? Bringing people together, helping educate them in a space where, you know, they might not need to know about what you're doing, but they're interested in what this person's doing. And, you know, as an educator, and I know Brother Grant and Brother Paul can say the same thing, I'm very much that way. When I first started teaching, it was like, all right, I got 31 kids in this class. Every single one of them has to do whoop-de-whoop, yada, yada. Of course, I quickly learned, yo, man, if there's one or two that I made a difference in, that I taught in a certain way that meant something to them, it was what I was called to do. And after teaching and finding out that, hey, I had a student that went to college to study biology because of how I taught biology. I was like, hey, I mean, cool. I did the best I could, and I'm good with that, you know? So what you guys are offering, man, is it's going to hit people differently. Each category that you all have impacted in what you're doing, there are people, listen, there are people that want to understand how to move in those spaces. And I'm very, very grateful for you all offering that today. As we close, man, one thing we do each week with our panelists is we ask each of you all, what are your habits, rituals, and practices that you do each week? What are your habits, rituals, and practices that maybe how you stay sane, maybe how you stay meditating, maybe how you stay in a meditative space? You know, whatever keeps you going, what are those things that you do to on a daily basis, affirmations, whatever it might be, to keep you in your safe and sacred space to proceed forward? Brother Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, a couple of things I do. I work out. Actually, I do cardio 6 days a week. So I run, either do my bike or walk. Then I have me a diffuser right here that I normally put Tuesday, alternate one day I'll put eucalyptus and oregano. And I also, that just kind of helps me stay fresh and, obviously say your prayers. And I don't, I'm almost pretty much a vegan. And I've been like that for a very long time. And I stay regimented. Only do the sports business, make sure my mom is okay. And hey, that's it.
Yeah, man, appreciate that very much.
I don't drink or smoke either. That probably helps me out. I don't smoke or drink. So
that's good. Mo, what about you, good brother?
Man, I mean, one thing that's always been like my core, and I got this from my mother, who was an educator and a teacher her whole life. was reading, man. It's just one of them core fundamental things that y'all brothers have talked about topics. I'm about to go find something about cryptocurrency and start reading on that. I'm about to look that up and see what's up. And I remember when I was a kid and she knew I was into football and she got me this book, They Called Me the Assassin about Jack Tatum. And that was like the first book that somebody connected something that was very interesting to me to a book. And after that, it was just like, it just all made sense, like what the power of actually having a book and reading can do. And it's just been the kind of thing that I fundamentally just lay out, what's on my reading schedule, setting out time to make sure that I can get to it and have a diverse, plethora of things that, I it's in terms of interest or pulling from, that you can enjoy in terms of actually just picking up a book, because you can learn a lot, just not about our culture, but about yourself. It's a good way to, figure some things out.
Sweet, man. Appreciate that. Thank you, Brother Gardner. Thank you. Brother Sweet, what about you, man? What are some of your habits, rituals, and practices, man?
First and foremost, I would say keep God first. My thing was work for me is doing my best and letting God handle the rest. And what's for me is for me. What's not is not. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. And I'm tremendously faith driven, and that's what helps me. So praying every night. In addition to that, always learning. I'm always watching something educational, whether it's YouTube videos, audiobooks, podcasts. That's just how I'm wired. If I hear about something today, I might have a whole level of history that I could write a research report on it, just because I've heard from it from so many different angles, so many different attempts of other people trying what worked for them, what didn't work for them, why did it fail. Just having a thirst for knowledge. I think if you do that, you can't lose.
Well
Man,
said, brother. Well said.
Well said. Well said. All of you guys have been very reflective on just furthering your own mindset, your own education, and learning more. And more than anything, that's very powerful for these young, seasoned folks to hear. And I appreciate it. I appreciate being a part of what we've done here today. Hold on, we got my main man Marty coming in. Let me see if he can close us out. Marty, are you there, good brother? Hold on. Marty, are you there, man?
I am. What's
All right,
happening,
check in,
brothers?
man.
I just wanted to check in.
How are you, good brother?
Huh?
How are you, man?
I'm doing good, bro. Hold on, let me get my video on it. I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Pops is doing all right. So
Good.
I'm good. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
do overnight in the hospital, but he's hanging in, man. I just want to check in though. I've been listening in though, y'all. I just want to check in and tell brothers, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for coming on and sharing your gifts with us, man. Sharing your gifts with the Black Man Lab. And as always, we want to have you in the space when we get back together, man. So we want you all to be in our space and share your gifts with all of our Black Man Lab participants as soon as we get back together. Hopefully, Molly and I have been talking about hopefully July. We're looking at getting back together live and in person. So just want to check in and say thank you to you all. Thank you to you, Joe, Jared, and Fred for running things today. Really appreciate it. And that's it, man. I couldn't had a free moment, was feeling good and wanted to check in, man. That's it.
I know we only have you for a moment, brother, but would you like to receive some of this energy and close us out, man? We'd really love to dedicate that to you and your family, man.
Will do, man. We can definitely close out, man. Every week we close out in tradition of Queen Injiri Al-Ghani, who was one of the leaders of Cobra. She would close out every meeting within Cobra with this saying. I'm a link in the chain. If everybody can link up, I'm sorry. Everybody can link your arms up.
Virtual.
If we were in person, we'd be locked arms. But repeat after me. I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a link in this chain.
Link
and
in
it
this
won't break
chain.
here.
And we won't break
Right here.
I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a
link in this chain.
This chain.
And it won't break here.
And it
won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We
are
are links in this chain.
and we won't break here.
And we
And
won't.
We won't break here.
Ashe. Thank you again, brothers. Appreciate you. Brothers, appreciate the love and the prayers, man. And I'll talk with y'all later on. Love
All right,
y'all.
take care.
Much love. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Powerful,
Great job as always, good brother. And we will be in touch soon, fellas.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
All right, take care.
Thank you all, brothers. Great